Well, Mike, thanks for helping my project. I was wondering if you could start out by saying a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Mike Wells. The meeting invite said make wells,
Yes.
Mike, but I like to make wells as well. But my name's Mike. I live in Houston, Texas, or north of Houston now. I've known you through Compaq and HP days, and we did some good traveling into Tokyo and some other places together. That was through Compaq and HP, I think I said. I don't work there anymore. I'm now at a software startup company based out of California. Actually, now it's based out of Colorado. The headquarters moved. But work defines a lot of my life. But what I work for is my family. So I have a wife and two daughters. My daughters are in their 20s, out living on their own, doing their own lives now. And still in the corporate world, just doing the day-to-day and trying to see what the end of time is for me for work. How's that?
That sounds good. But I was also wondering if in your experience, if you had heard about NASA's plans to send astronauts back to the moon.
So I only heard about it through you. There might have been a news blip. I hate watching the news because if it bleeds, it leads, and I don't like a lot of the news that we see. It's not really positive stuff, and it's also very biased, in my opinion. But I heard about it through you and researched a little bit. I know we first set foot on the moon in '69, and I didn't remember there was multiple trips back to the moon until '72. But again, I researched a little bit. I grew up in the '80s, '70s and '80s, let's say, and my memories are more of the space shuttle, and it was front and center. I know the big push back in the '60s was the space race with and getting to first the moon, and it was a huge confidence builder for our country and gather people together. The '80s was more about, to me, exploration and different things we can do to see how we can improve ourselves and what else is out there. And then after the shuttle stopped running because of budget cuts, I believe, to me, this space has really dropped off the radar of everybody, including this. Again, I heard about it through you, that the next going to the moon again. It's kind of question myself why to the moon again, and we've already been there. I thought it once, but probably about 6 or 7 times. I'm hoping it's leading towards something bigger and towards more people getting involved and thinking about the bigger picture of where we are in the universe and how we can better mankind. I think, and myself included, we spend too much time focused on ourselves, and I'm not a big thinker either. I like to be able to have answers to I'm a very curious person, but I like to be able to Google and find the answer to my curiosity, or at least find some things around it to where I can build a conclusion. But bigger picture questions to me are always something I kind of avoid because I can't answer it, So you asked me about, I knew we were going to the moon, but I went way deep and off track like I normally do. So
no worries, but that kind of is a good lead into my next question of like whenever you think about, I know it's a big picture type of philosophical question, but when you think about the future of humanity, like 100, 200 years from now, do you think we're still like only on the earth making like these little side trips to places, or do you kind of envision us actually expanding out to, you know, orbital hotels and living facilities and the moon and Mars and other places?
Well, if you think back 100 years, that'd be like 1922, and a lot has changed in that time frame. You know, cars were introduced just before that, or somewhere near that time frame, and where we've come with cars and planes, you know, didn't exist, let alone space travel. You go back to the 1822s, and you're talking maybe some railway and some covered wagons and stuff, and so a lot can happen in that time frame. I'm not going to be alive in that time frame, so I don't tend to think that far in advance. Again, I don't know if it's I think in my youth, I was more philosophical, but I've gotten older. I don't know if it's based on just the changes in media and the internet and everything else, or just the way people age. Yeah, to your question, we got somebody in space right now with the space station. I think there's somebody up there right now. I don't know.
Yep. The space station has been continuously inhabited since October 31st, 2001.
And how many people are there right now?
7.
7 right now. Wow. And how often they come back?
Well, there's sort of like 3 different lengths of time that people generally stay. There's some people that only go up there for 10 days at a time. Most of them stay up there for 6 months at a time. And then occasionally there are people that are staying there for a longer period, closer to nearly a year.
Wow. So I know there's risks involved with that. So I think, you know, humans are very fragile. Look at COVID-19 and look at other things. We've got this wonderful world around us with the shield, you know, the atmosphere and the ability to, you know, bounce rocks off or burn the rocks off before they hit us, based on size. But you know, the space station, the radiation that could be hitting that, maybe they've made something to where the radiation isn't bad, but also just the lack of gravity and, you know, bones. And I don't know how we started. That's the one philosophy that, you know, I don't know, and no one really knows. But I know we've adapted over time to our planet, and to put people out there for long periods of time, and especially if they're fixed on a location like on the moon or Mars or someplace, the possibilities of, you know, being hit by something or having, you know, you have to have air, water, food, to be able to sustain life. To me, is just a pretty far-fetched idea, and then the quality of life that's there would be pretty far-fetched as well. But to have, like you're saying, to have orbital hotels, or, you know, that'd be awesome. I'd like to be able to go up there, visit for, you know, a week or something, and be able to experience what space is, and then come home again. You know, this is my home. Like I said, we put somebody, or 7 people right now, in space for a long period of time, and they come home. Do they have like a eject pod or something, to where if something goes wrong, they can actually splash down back here on the space station?
Essentially, the spacecraft that they go to the station on stays docked to it.
Okay.
And then they can hop in that in short notice and come back if they need to.
I don't think you'd have a eject pod on Mars or the moon, but maybe that's part of the planning part of it, is to build in that stuff too. But So yeah, I could see, so that's another piece of it is it's all about money too. So is it commercially viable to put this put the hotel up there to where people want to travel and make that, sustainable? To me, I think that most of the inventions we've had and technology advancements we've had has all been around commercial. Can I make money out of it? The only time this it's research is even for like healthcare stuff. It's all the research is for can we find a cure, which we can then charge money to make money off of it. There's very, I'm corporately entranced at this point. So to me, the people that are doing, betterment for mankind need to be governmentally funded or privately funded, and like other space companies like SpaceX and I guess Blue Origin. Is it Blue Origin or Blue Horizon?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin. I think they're in it for the money, but also some of those guys have so much money they might want to try to make a name for themselves or do something for the betterment of mankind. So I guess to answer your question, I could see things go in that direction as long as there's funding provided for it. And I think we can make it happen. Again, if there's funding provided for it.
Now, we've had projects in the past where the economics of it didn't quite work out, but we could see how they might. And I'm thinking of like building the Transcontinental Railroad. It didn't make sense to spend a whole bunch of money to put tracks in the middle of where nobody was. But, being able to give the railroad companies like something, I guess, 50 miles in either direction of where they laid their tracks kind of provided that economic incentive to kind of make that investment. And I was just wondering what you thought about having a similar type of philosophy when it came to actual development of space infrastructure. That if you build a base on the moon, you actually can own so much of the space around it for so long, or something like that.
I would hate to be selling space. We've done it all over the country, all over the world here, and the building the railroads too. They're gonna get paid to use that railroad too, so they're gonna be able to charge, unless the government took it over, but be able to charge, for people on it and cargo and everything else. So there's still a monetary value to building it besides just the free land. I kind of treat space as something precious to where people shouldn't own it, I don't know, it's just my thought behind it.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, share your views on that. But it also means that like the same sort of processes that work here on Earth in terms of economic development and infrastructure building won't translate in the same way to space, and it's unclear on what the alternative would be.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is if you need to make progress, that's one way to do it, and by owning part of that habitat on the moon and the area around it, that entrepreneurial person might say, let's build out a golf course or something else around it to attract more people and for them to make more money. So I understand that. I just hate to see space being divided up and owned.
So
But,
in the
but I also don't know how else to do it. So I understand what you're saying.
in the Pacific, there's like a big open space of water, right? Can you imagine like, you know, plate tectonics or some type of huge volcano, and essentially like a whole nother continent gets created in the middle of the Pacific? How would you go about, I mean, you know, how would you go about, I guess, deciding who would control that new landmass that just suddenly divided, you know, appeared?
So I'd be worried about that new continent being built and what that's doing to the ocean levels and affecting the other continents. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess what you're trying to get me at is whoever built it should be the one that owns it. So,
Well, in this particular case, I was thinking it'd be a natural phenomenon, you know,
okay.
like, yeah, so nobody would have built it, just would emerge.
Okay. I think there'd be a lot of politics and involved that, you know, again, going back to the way the world is today, there's so many extreme views that are, I think, driven by media. If I go out in the world and talk to people, we don't talk about politics. And if we do, it's not, you know, I hate you for this. But people on Facebook, they'll defriend each other based on some political statement or, you know, the media driving politics. I try to just live my life and not worry about those other things that are there and enjoy the people around me. But yeah, if the new continent formed, there'd probably be wars over it, and you know, people trying to claim it, and it'd be a horrible thing in my mind.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I keep thinking, you know, what kind of happened when like Columbus just ran into North America. I mean, essentially that was equivalent. I mean, it existed for a long, long time, but for the Europeans, it was like a landmass just suddenly appeared.
Yeah, and the Indians were just trying to live their lives and then welcome the new people in for the most part, from what I understand, and they got the shaft.
I know.
And that might be the same thing if aliens ever come here. You know, they could be here for good or could be here for bad, and we'll have to wait and see if and when that ever happens.
Yeah, indeed. Well, if you could take a trip to space, would you?
Yeah, so saying before is, you know, I wouldn't pay a lot of money for it. So I wouldn't want to burden my financial situation or my lifestyle here, but I would pay something, and I would love to go to space. I'd love to walk on a different planet, but I wouldn't want to be there for a long period of time. Because again, I don't know how it affects the body and what COVIDs are up there that we don't know about, but also the quality of life and being away from family and so on. So, you know, maybe if there's a defined time frame, like less than 6 months, or you know, we have to see what that time frame was and what all was involved. But I think it'd be a blast to go to space. And a blast wasn't trying to be funny, but
I know. It's funny how certain expressions have so many different meanings. That
right,
like,
right.
Well, you know, you were mentioning about like the 1920s and the 1820s. So can you imagine like somebody in the 2220s, you know, 200 years in the future, looking back on our time? What do you think it would be worth remembering about this decade, or that you hope would be worth remembering about this decade in 200 years?
I'll change the question up a little bit, not what would be worth remembering, but what would be remembered. You know, remembered for COVID, and remember for the division of the country and the world, politics. You know, going back a little bit, remembered for the technology boom, you know, with the internet and with everything you see today. You know, I was in college in the late 80s, early 90s, and very early 90s. And when we're about to graduate, I told my wife that, you know, one day people will have phones on their belts, you know, like a pager was in those days. And she's like, how is that possible? They're gonna have cords going everywhere. And you know, so the advancement we've had just in that time frame, from, you know, no social media, your social media was getting out in front of people and doing things, not for the selfie, but for the experience itself. And the changes have happened over that time frame. Again, I've gotten old, so the younger generation probably thinks something different about that. But where we've been in these past few decades, and then for this decade again, the division, the COVID, it's the negative things. You know, I'm hoping this decade for the, you know, we're only 2 years into it. I'm hoping that does change to where we do come back together as a country, and hopefully we come back together as a world. And the world's not that bad, you know, right now. We've had some much worse times in the past, but to see people as people and not as, you know, political parties, and to, you know, hopefully through this and other NASA things to start to think about our bigger picture in the world. And I'm hoping that's the change that's happening here, to where as people 200 years from now look back to this decade, they'll say this is a time of change, not the time of COVID and division, but a time of change to where we got better. I'm hopeful for that. And I think NASA can help with that.
What do you think it would take for that to happen?
Well, I think more funding, government funding or private funding towards the betterment of mankind. You know, so I think there'll be some things that'll make things better in the short term, to where a lot of the resources we're concerned about will be not as much of a concern going forward, like finding better ways to produce energy and batteries and so on and so forth. I think that technology is still looming, but will be here soon. I don't think we'll have like a Star Trek, I forgot what they call it, but the generator thing where you can just say, I want a sandwich, and you hit a button and boom, a sandwich shows up. I don't think we'll be anywhere near that, to where money's no longer needed. But I think, you know, through we need to change media to where it's more constructive, and that's, you know, both the social, I guess the internet, the television, you know, all the ways that media reaches people to be constructive, but also that change that narrative again, to go back to the Jacques Cousteau days, to where, you know, you're in amazement of the world around you, and you're looking for, I guess you're thinking not about me like we're all doing now, but more about our world, the universe we're in, and the people that are here. So it's changing the narrative in communications. think that's how we get there. What do you think?
I think that's definitely key. It just seems like we're kind of locked into a reinforcing cycle that keeps that narrative from changing. Like, I mean, the people with voices are the people that are able to excite other people, and they do that by kind of preying on fear and division.
Absolutely.
And then, that creates more reason to be afraid. And then, it's just like you have all these little bitty camps emerging. And I don't understand how that cycle gets broken and a new thing emerges.
And people blindly follow their some of those narratives. They agree with one point, but then they blindly follow everything else. Like the vaccine, the anti-vaxxers, read, learn something. mRNA has been around forever. It's used for the flu vaccine. That's what we're giving for the COVID vaccines. How do you think that people are trying to put chips in your body? I mean, it's just crazy, crazy. And people, like I said, they hook onto one thing that they agree with, and they just blindly follow the rest of the narrative that's there. So I don't know. I hope it changes. I hope that 200 years or 20 years, they look back in this time and say, this is when things change and made things better.
That's one of the things that I think if we develop a colony in another planet, like Mars, for example, there'll be a period of time where those people are so reliant on each other and everybody knows everybody that you would be able to create a little microcosm of.
Absolutely. That's with everything, remember the World Trade Center happened, we banded together. We were no longer parties, we were a country, and that's a horrible event that happened that made that happen. But yeah, if you go off to Mars and have a colony there, you don't have a country. Your country is the people that are around you. And my fear of having a place on Mars is, how do you protect those meteors coming in, and how do you protect your bubble from being broken into by anything? And like I said, that escape pod needs to be there for the shit might hit the fan. But I still don't know if that would unite everyone on the planet, though. It would unite the people in that colony. But I remember hearing, I guess it was what's the zombie show on TV?
I don't know. I haven't watched that many zombie shows.
Well, the story here is that at the break of filming, there's a lunch break, and all the zombies went and sat together at the zombie table, and all the other characters went and sat at a different character. Your group based on what your surroundings are and what you think people are around you. And that's what the analogy I'm trying to drive. It's called the Walking Dead.
Okay.
That's the analogy I'm trying to drive towards, is you're now part of that colony, so you're going to be living with and sharing ideas and thoughts with those people, regardless of where they came from. For the people back on Earth, they're still going to be living their own lives, and they won't change people's views here.
It won't. And but sometimes I mean, even on the Earth today, there's different levels of technology, of peace, of development, of kind of, how should I say, social interaction. I mean, Earth is not uniform in any way that you look at it. And there might be places on the Earth where it's very, people are behaving with inside of their little group in a way that's kind of more in line with that vision.
Oh, sure.
And, I mean, I see it as more of, how do you create more bubbles like that? And how do you expand those bubbles? And then how do you connect those bubbles? And, it's like an iterative process, right?
I would love to see that happen. Yeah, it's I think it's a really hard task, but and it'll take great minds to do that. But it could be hopefully not another 9/11 event, but a positive event to where people will drop their barriers, their walls, and their mindsets, and start to see things in a different light. I think that's what it'll take. I don't think you can do it piece by piece. I think it'll be some big activity that will help. If you watch the old Star Trek shows, they're not only people from different spots of the Earth. There's other alien races all together, and they don't see a division there anymore. Of course, there's a division between those guys and the bad guys. I don't remember what the bad guys are called. I wasn't a real big Trekkie guy, but I'm hoping that we can, stop seeing each other as enemies and division, and start looking outside to what might be, make our enemies might be the alien life that's out there that could harm us, but don't automatically treat them that way. Treat them as, hopefully something that's an expansion of minds for the universe.
Yeah, I hope so. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I mean, the problem is a lot more fundamental than people like coming together on a common direction. But literally, I mean, the way we receive our news and interact with each other, and like what we're fed, means that we're literally living in different worlds. And it's not something that we're able to come together by just talking to each other, because, or at least it would take a lot of talking, because we can't even agree what actually is happening, and
Right.
what's, and you go online and it's all self-reinforcing. You see
Right.
you see everything that kind of reinforces your
point of view.
your point of view and what you think. And it's just like you get further and further into the silo, and it's just like, how do
So
you
when do you
break out
think
of
that actually started? Me as a kid watching the news, and even in the 20s and so on, I didn't see it as politically biased and division along those lines. Maybe I was just jaded, but do you think there was a change to where that actually started happening, or do you think it's always been there?
Well, I mean, I think there's always been something there, but we had I guess we had sources that had reputations to protect and who could be held accountable, like the newspaper and the nightly news. Now, and they looked, we may not have agreed with the nightly news, but we're all watching the same nightly news, so at least we could talk about how we disagree with the same thing. But now, you and I can go set up a newspaper online and make it look just as legit as anybody else and say whatever we want to, and then people start referencing our stuff, and
I guess
You
the
know, there's
difference is we used to be able to talk about it face to face, and now it's all online. And it's, instant access and instant gratification, and living for that instant as well. How popular can you be through your online? It's almost like gamifying your life, to where I'm better in my life because I have more likes and more people following me and more hits and so on, versus the personal interactions that are there. Maybe that's what's changed it, but to me, it's, again, I might be just getting old, but the world's changed a lot since. It's a lot more difficult now than what it was when I was younger.
yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, one benefit about when you were younger is you've survived it. So it's like how that story turned out,
Yeah.
but everything in the present, you're like, I'm not sure.
Well, that's true too. And you also tend to remember all the good things from the past and try to expel the bad things from the past. So your look back might be pretty, jaded as well. Let me ask you some questions. What are your thoughts about going back to the moon versus other things that NASA, could be doing, and what the direction is beyond, going back to the moon?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think one thing that's changed over the past decade and a half or so, it's kind of like, Elon Musk and SpaceX kind of really challenging the status quo and creating cheaper ways to access space.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, and also you see the rise of lots of other space companies. NASA, instead of like building probes to land on the moon, is paying private companies to do it, like Intuitive Machines here in Houston, and Astrobotic in Pittsburgh, and Firefly Aerospace in Austin, and a couple of other companies. And so you really see kind of like a broadening, like an ecosystem of space activity and space companies. And while NASA is a big support of it and driver of it, it's not the only driver. And at some point, hopefully, like that rest of that ecosystem becomes self-sustaining, and we actually make the solar system kind of part of the same domain of humanity as the parts of the Earth are. So that's sort of the direction where I see it, and I think a lot of that's going to come from private investment and decreasing costs, more so than kind of the missions that are selected by governments.
So still the government on these things you're talking about are funding it, but they're pushing it out to private companies, hopefully not to the lowest bid that could blow up, but towards finding cheaper and better ways to do things, which is great. To me, that's a positive thing. Those companies are going to be doing it still to make money. There might be some people out there that are, like your Bill Gates, and that have enough money and are wanting to better, mankind as well. I think that's what he's doing. I'm not quite sure. He's not sold me on it completely yet, but so I think that funding's still coming, and then being able to push it out to other companies will definitely improve the throughput. It'll make innovations faster, because you got more minds that are money driven, but also smart minds that can solve the problems that are out in front of them. So I see that as a great thing. And if we could keep doing that through, again, government funded projects that are looking for, and let's look beyond government, let's look for world funded. It won't happen, but how we are together in this world as one, and what we do affects everybody. But to find that funding to help push those innovators to expand would be a wonderful thing to happen.
But sometimes doing things on a shoestring budget is the way that you get the true innovation.
Sure.
If you look at kind of like the Wright brothers, which kind of funded their own development of aircraft, versus Langley, who was funded with like a large amount of government funding. And, one of them was successful and created a successful business, and the other one wasn't able to get a plane to fly. Sometimes I think maybe, it's not about, I don't think it's about funding per se. I think it's about will. Do you want to do it? Like, companies want to make money, so they design their activities to actually make the money. They don't necessarily want to do specific things, right? But then you have individuals with vision, and they'll go off if they want to do something specific. If they need to make money to make it happen, or if that's a side project, that's great. But
exactly.
It's about, what do you want to do, and how committed are you to doing it? I think those are the big things that make things happen, and money is just I would say is often used as an excuse.
Then you have others that are like the bureaucrats, and that are about power, and that really can slow down the process, even cripple or stop the process. So I don't know how lean NASA is, but I think at points of time there might have been a lot of red tape that would keep the innovation down. Not trying to bash NASA at all, but then also through the government, you see it in corporate America as well. It's about the power that's there too. But yeah, if you find, like you're saying, an innovator who doesn't care about money, they just care about the product, or care about, and then humanitarian that cares about, again, not the money, or but just better, making things better for people, and making people like or love each other better. There's people out there like that, and you could find the right mix and also get it into the media. It can change, some mindsets there. And I'm hoping, I guess the question back to you, this decade, what should it be remembered for? To me, there's nothing great yet, but this, if it's spun off right, could be a great start to changing minds of people. But so what are your thoughts? What do you think would be great about this decade?
Well, I like to talk about my career of when I graduated from high school in '94, the internet was just taking off, and anybody who knew anything about computers could instantly get a job. And the last 25 years of my life have been really focused on the results, have been a result of that. And I feel like this decade is going to be the same for space as the 1990s were for the internet. And I really think this is the decade where we have a huge kind of mind shift inflection point. You go and talk to somebody in the 1990s, early 1990s, about streaming video and video conferences like this, and email and things like that. People would be like, "What are you talking about? Why would I sit in front of a computer all day? That makes no sense." And then, I feel like that this is the decade we sort of have that same shift in space, and that's that's one reason why I'm doing this project, is because after we have that shift, it's going to be less interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so what's gonna make that shift happen though? Do you think it's people thinking about the way the planet's currently going? Or is it, what's gonna get the interest in space? I know you have it. You have it deep, you know, the interest in space, but what's gonna bring people about to, and what technologies are gonna be happening to make that interest show up?
But I think the same thing is true with computers. You know, we had computers a long time before the 1990s, but they were big, kind of took up buildings, and they were really expensive. And what really made the 1990s happen was economics, right? The cost of the computer went way down. Its capabilities started going way up. And it's going to be that same thing that makes the shift with people's perception about space. Whenever you have a fully reusable spacecraft that all you have to do is fuel up and go, I mean, that's going to reduce the cost of accessing space by like, not just by like half, but by like, it'd be like 1,000th of what it was.
Do you think that's doable though? Do you think we can get there? I mean, look at the amount of, I don't know the right word, but disturbance is put onto like the space shuttle exiting the atmosphere and coming back in, you know, the burn. And is it really gonna be, do you really think we could have a refuel and go again situation?
I think we do. And actually in South Texas, near South Padre Island, there's a place called Boca Chica, just outside of Brownsville, where SpaceX has a huge facility where they've been developing and building such a craft. And they've done some like low altitude tests with it. And they're planning to do like an orbital test later this year. And, you know, Elon is committed to making it happen. So I think that's the first thing is you have to believe it's possible. The second thing is you have to be committed to keep trying things until you make it happen. And I believe both of those things will result in it happening in this decade.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I know that he has that, and he has his Tesla facility here now too. And I know they're landing the rockets out on platforms in the ocean, movable platforms. So, you know, like you said, by privatizing this, or however you want to say that, it is opening up a lot more ideas, and these innovators are really helping out. I've signed up for Starlink for our lake house in Austin. We don't have good internet there. I've been on the wait list for about 1.5 years now, and should be coming in the next couple of months, what I've been hearing. I know that's what he's using his rockets for a lot of them, is to put more satellites up there, and to know about that low Earth orbit, the latency, and all the things that will be happening with it. I'm just really thrilled that that's coming. And again, I was about to say it's for making money, but I don't think for him it is. I don't know if he'll ever make enough money off of that. You know, putting up, I think it's 30,000 satellites in the, you know, up there in the low Earth orbit. But just the knowledge he's gaining in space by doing that can leapfrog into something else. You know, just like you're saying, if we could have it come back down, refuel it, and go again, that could be what we've learned based on his satellite endeavor.
Yeah, and you know, SpaceX has been launching a rocket on average like every 6.5 days this year.
Wow, I didn't realize it's that often.
Yeah, it's it's been amazing. I mean, if you look at all of the the mass of things that went into orbit this year across the world, SpaceX has launched over half of mass to orbit this year. So
I think they're planning to get to that 30,000. And right now, it's just Starlink is just covering the top part of the hemisphere, so it hasn't covered everything yet. But I think you'll be able to look up and out in the space or at night where it's, you know, the light pollution's not so bad, and just be able to see just a chain of satellites flying around, or, you know, orbiting around the Earth. But I thought he's like launching like every 3 or 4 months, and having like 30 or so satellites on each of those launches. I didn't realize it's every 6 or 7 days. Is it all for Starlink, or is it for other things too?
As for other things too. So they've been launching things for other communication companies. You know, they've been launching crew and supplies to the International Space Station.
Really?
Yeah, and they've been launching, you know, satellites for other countries. So it's been, they have quite a manifest, they call it, you know.
Wow. And how many different rockets are those? Are they, what's the reusability rate of the rockets?
Well, yeah, no, indeed. So the Falcon 9 that they've been launching on is only partially reusable. So it's made up of like the first stage, the second stage, and then you have the satellite on top with some payload fairings around it that, you know, kind of protect the payload while it's going through the atmosphere. So they've been able to reuse the first stage, which is the biggest part and probably represents about 80% of the cost of the rocket. I think up to like 14 times so far, and they're still continuously reusing that. The second stage, it gets burned up on reentry, and they're not reusing that. And then the payload fairings, they've actually been retrieving those as well. So it's about, you know, maybe 85% reusable. But you know, that last 15% is key. Even if you had to replace just part of an airplane each time, it would be a lot more expensive to fly around.
Yeah, that first stage, they're reusing that and without a problem. And my fear is there's so much going on with that first stage that something's got to shake loose, you know, and just like we saw with, was it Columbia that lost the heat panels and burned up on entry? I think that's what caused that. But you know, the reuse of the space shuttle wasn't just a fill it up and send it back up again. It was a lot to it, and then still there were stresses that happened that made horrible things happen. So but yeah, I'd like to see if there's a way, I mean, if it's even possible, but on that reentry to be able to bring it down to where it's not, you know, such a traumatic process, you know?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you had enough fuel on board in orbit, you could slow down enough, and it would be, it wouldn't be dramatic like that. But having the atmosphere to use as a brake pad means that you don't have to launch as much fuel into orbit and stuff. So it's kind of like, you know, if you look at the Blue Origin's New Shepard, it just goes up above the atmosphere and back down. It doesn't need any heat shielding at all, right? Because it doesn't have to achieve orbital velocities.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I mean, but the problem is all of that energy, you know, that you use to get it to orbit, you had to get rid of that energy somehow. And if you weren't going to use the atmosphere to do it, you would have to essentially burn as much fuel to stop it as you did to get it up. And then that fuel, you would also have to get into orbit. So like the rocket would be like even more gigantic than it is now for such a little thing.
Yeah, well, maybe a big parachute. But that's what we need, these people like Musk and other guys to, you know, I was in, well, one of my first jobs was at oil and gas company, and a analogy was thrown out there, which was there's power lines going over this pipeline, and the power lines end up getting snow and ice on them. So they try to figure out a way to make that not happen anymore. And one of the guys threw out, well, we should just get a bear to go and shake every pole that's out there. So a bear walks up, shakes a pole, and the ice falls off the lines. And this ridiculous idea, but made someone else think, we can just fly our helicopters over those lines, which would cause the vibrations to knock off the ice. So that's our solution to it. So sometimes you have to have those ridiculous ideas for someone else to think about, you know, here's a great way to do it. It's that outside the box. Me saying, let's throw, you know, a parachute out to slow us down. Can't do that in space, but maybe someone else will come up with a different idea, and yeah, that makes sense, you know, through this other thing. So again, having those minds that are innovators and wanting to make those changes could really not just the ones that have signed up for the low pay government job, just like a teacher, you know, wanting to change the world. It's the minds that you could outsource that to those other minds that are not that are as good or possibly stronger, that are innovative as well, to help solve that next problem that's there.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy ideas like being able to send video and voice through the air using electromagnetic waves. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah, and that happened a long time ago. Radio.
Yeah, only, I guess, in like the 1800s, right? It's
yeah,
like
a long time ago for us. For humanity, it's just a short period of time. But yes, who would have thought about that? I guess Sir Isaac Newton would have thought about it.
maybe.
Or Tesla.
Well, Mike, I thank you so much for connecting with me today. I have
Sure.
got a few people hunting me down, so I gotta.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I know we've misconnected a few times, and I kind of wanted you to save me for a rainy day in case you couldn't find somebody, but I think that's what you tried to do, but still we connected and we're able to do it. So I'm really happy for what you're doing. I know it's a huge undertaking to do it. I think it's growing you as a person, so that's a wonderful thing, and I hope you continue on through. It's a great definition of your life as well, you know, to say, here's something else I did in my life that's out of the norm besides, you know, wake up, work, eat and sleep, you know. So I'm glad to be part of it, and I'm hopeful for our future here.
I really appreciate it, Mike. And you know, I have over 800 more days to go. So if you know anybody else that'd be willing to have a conversation, it feels like it's raining every day now.
I can probably turn you on to some people, so I'll work my networks here. It might be every single relative I have, which is not many, but you know, I think, you know, you could also just go out to talk to people in random places. Go to, you know, in grocery stores, or people at work, or people off the street, you know. So there's a wealth of people out there, and hopefully people willing to take the time, because time is a, you know, a precious commodity. Well, I don't know the right word is there for it, but have hopefully people will take the time to go to a mall and talk to people, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll try to shake some trees for you to see what can happen.
That sounds good. And I do that, but I haven't quite figured out the right approach. So maybe you and I can follow up on that and brainstorm some ideas, because you know, how do you keep from looking like a scammer or somebody that's trying to sell somebody?
Right. If you hold up a sign saying, come talk to me about the moon, you might think you're crazy as well. So it's hard. Yeah, I understand it's hard to, yeah, I don't, again, another reference, I know you got to go, but there's a movie called 50 First Dates where Drew Barrymore loses her long-term memory. She only has a memory of one day, but they built a way for her to catch up with what's happened over her life. You got to have something like that, an intro for people that will draw them in and let them understand what you're doing in a short period of time to be able to get that interview done.
That would be good. I for my 1-year anniversary, you know, they did a story about me in the Houston Chronicle, which was kind of cool.
That's very cool.
You know, so maybe you know, carrying that around and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, would you like to participate? Might be a good starter.
Maybe reach out to the news also. I don't know if you've done that yet, but you know, tell them this is what you've been doing, and usually that's kind of what opens up a lot of doors. You know, social media too. If people are talking about you, people will contact you saying, "I want to sign up for a time." I don't know. I'm all about me, so I'm giving you advice on things I'm not doing on my own.
Yeah, but just like the parachute idea, it's you know, triggers ideas.
There
right?
you go. There you go.
So it's useful. It's useful.
There you go. All right. Well, go play some soccer for me. Do some more talking with people, and I think you're studying for tests to get a good spot. So keep doing what you're doing. I think it's really cool what you've done so far, you know, based on what I've known from you from before. And I look forward to seeing things from you, and I hope the best for you as well.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And it was so good to reconnect. And sometime we'll need to do lunch or dinner or breakfast or something.
Yeah. All right. I'm in Conroe now, so come on up.
I go that way fairly regularly, so
okay.
Not a problem.
I'm always available.
Well, it sounds good. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.